Right.
Perfect. Yeah. So look at we've got everybody from Nova Scotia and BC and Texas and Ontario and Georgia and Quebec.
Where do you enter that information? Where do you
In the
enter?
chat. So the little chat box on the
Oh,
bottom.
it's
Hey,
working.
Tammy.
Hello.
Long time no see. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good.
It's nice to see you
Yeah, I know it's been
again.
forever. It feels like it's been a
Yeah,
long time. I'm glad you're
you look
here.
well. I don't have a chat box. I have a share. Is that it?
No, it
No,
should be chat on the bottom.
no, I don't have that. Let's see if I can just wait.
That's okay though.
I don't have it. Well, I'm from
Okay.
Wisconsin. How's that? Okay, I'm from Wisconsin. There we go. That's
And Deb's coming from Wisconsin. There you go. That's what your accent is. That's what.
I don't have an accent. What's wrong with you?
And
Nope.
Adinda is from Ontario. Awesome. And Tammy, you're from Mount Forest. Oh, I didn't know that. That's so close, right?
Yeah.
You're just down the road from me.
I didn't actually get to meet you. My sister-in-law did, but it was in Shelburne.
Oh, in person. Did she come for
There
something
was
in
a
person?
little business there that held an event that you had an appearance in.
Oh,
Well,
cool. Yeah, that's very cool. I've been fortunate to meet everybody from like all over the world, which is awesome.
hmm
And now because I, do everything online, I've got clients from literally all over the world, which is kind of cool. But back in the day when I always say, because I'm 52, so I've been doing this stuff for a while. And I say, back in the day, we didn't have social media and we didn't have everything was word of mouth. And, I'm in a small little town, right? And I can remember, people that would hear about me from like Toronto or Quebec or whatever, and they would travel to my small little town
Yeah. I
to
remember
meet.
going to see psychics and mediums that way too in the old days. I'm 61, so
Yeah,
got
so
a few
like,
years on you there.
yeah. Well, back in the day, we didn't have the social media. It was just, right? If somebody talked to you about somebody and then you travel to go and find them. So,
Yes.
so it definitely makes our circles get bigger. We have bigger circles now. But I do miss meeting people in person. That is always fun. Okay, so let's go because let's just and as people come in, I will just let them come in. So, if you guys haven't been to these classes before, welcome. I'm glad that you've come. We just finished. We did 4 weeks of it. And it's kind of the first time that I've done these classes and I had so much fun doing it. Like this is the cool part about my job. If I ever complain about my job, please remind me that I'm very fortunate. But there was so much information that came through for me. It's like the same thing when I do a reading for a client, and especially this week, I don't know why, but every reading that I did, there was stuff that came through in the reading that was like, for me, I needed that too. Like I needed to have that information. So it's always really, helpful when I kind of step out of the way when we're doing the classes, which I have to do when I'm doing the readings, but then when they're giving me information that's pertinent to what I'm going through as well, I really like that. So I'm looking forward to tonight's class to see what they're going to give us and what kind of insights we're going to come across. So what I want to do is I want to start off by I don't know if you guys have been following and seeing, but I've been using a technology called the AO scanner for several months now. It's all up on my website if you want to go and learn about it. But I started using it in October for my own healing, and now I use it for my mom, for my family members. And what it is, it's sound frequency. And it's just very, very precise sound frequency. And it uses Rife frequencies and scalar frequencies. And, if you follow everything, they say that, frequency will be the medicine of the future. And I think it's the medicine
Mm,
now. I really do
yes.
do believe it for sure. So I'm just going to and for more information, go to my website, and if you have any questions about it, for sure, shoot me an email. But I wanted just to start us with just sending a clearing frequency to the group So what I want you guys to do is I'll invite you just to kind of close your eyes. It'll be really quick. We'll just put the clearing frequency through and just kind of create an intention to let go of any blocks, any ideas that are holding you back, anything that kind of feels heavy or stuck. And I'd invite you also to put aside anything that you have come here to like work on. So if there's anything, and I probably don't want to hear that, but if there's anything that you're kind of like struggling on or seeking, or I want you just to put that off to the side, put it on the shelf just for a little bit, and then just allow these frequencies to come through, and just do a clearing. It's just going to do an energetic clearing for you. Okay, I'm going to put this. Can you guys hear that okay?
I can't hear anything.
Can't hear anything.
Can you hear that? Okay, you can just close your eyes. It's very faint, but you just can close your eyes.
My phone has the speaker at the bottom here on the end, so maybe yours.
Can you hear that
No.
now? No?
No.
That's okay. It went through. That's okay. That's the
Okay.
thing about it is when I'm sending, so you can see I'm just running the app on my phone, but when I send the frequencies to clients, the clients don't even have to be in the room with to receive it. So what I've done is I've
Okay.
just put the group into here. So it's got our location, it's got our meeting, and then it's just sent us the clearing frequency. So that's kind of cool.
Nice.
That's the cool part about it. Okay,
Thank
so
you.
close your eyes for a minute then, and just do, because we received that so quickly, but just close your eyes for a minute and just give yourself permission really to kind of let things like drop the baggage off at the door. Just leave all the stuff at the door. And the reason we're doing this is because we're going to be playing with our intuition tonight. And the cool thing to know about your intuition is that there's no thinking or thoughts involved in it. So I fully give you permission to turn your thoughts off. And just take a few slow, deep belly breaths just to ground and center. It's helpful too if you put your hands to your heart. This way, you know, you're creating the intention of connecting with your higher self, with your soul energy. And of course, when we talk about our intuition is the language of our soul. It just comes naturally. That's naturally how our soul communicates. Good. And of course, when we do this process, when we get together and we gather like this in the light, we are gathered and joined by our guides, our angels, the ascended masters, our galactic being friends, which is awesome because they lift us up, they hold us in the light, they give us guidance, they give us love, support. And all we have to do in order to receive that is just simply say, I give you permission. Okay, so let's start. So I want to just ask everybody, and if you have something to write in, that's awesome because there will be things that come through for you that will be beneficial. And so we know now what we want to do is we want to be listening with our whole being and so not with our mind. And so who is, and I'm just going to start here because they keep on showing me this. Who is familiar with what we call the clairs? Has anybody heard that before? If you were a mediumship student or if you're a psychic student of mine before, you'll know that we would do work on developing our clairs. Does anybody? Yeah, Adinda, so good. So when we talk about our clairs, they are our senses of receiving and interpreting information. So they can include our hearing, they can include our feeling, they can include our knowing, and they can include our seeing. So not seeing with our eyes, but seeing with our inner eyes. And so when we talk about our intuition is really kind of a gathering of all of those senses. And so just think about if you have, you know, you have the ability to interpret with all of these things on. And that's when we talk about our intuition. So how many of you think that you actually are using your intuition to its fullest potential? Just let me see a hands up. Right.
No one's using it to their full potential. That's
Yeah.
what you're teaching.
Right. I mean, the thing about it is that when we are in these 3D dense bodies, we have a lot of obstacles in the way. And so that's the reason why we don't use our intuition to its fullest potential. But we can. So there are moments, we do have moments, and I'm sure you guys have had moments where you just totally feel it, right? You just totally get it. That just comes to you. You just have like this aha, yeah, I get it. I got it, right? We've all where you get the goosebumps. Who gets goosebumps sometimes when they're like when they say something? Yeah, right? And so the goosebumps are validation. That's usually the way that our guidance teams give us validation that we're on the right track, or we're speaking the truth. We're speaking the truth. That's how they give us validation.
You're awesome.
Yeah. And so Kirsten says how you receive information. Yeah. So that's our clairs is how we receive information. And so we say our intuition is how we interpret it. So does that make sense? So if we are going to receive all of the information through our clairs, so we're going to feel it, we're going to sense it, we're going to hear it, we're going to see it. Notice I didn't say anything about thinking, right? We're not going to think about it. We're not going to figure it out. And then what happens is then our filter of intuition comes through. And so that filter of intuition kind of makes sense of it all. Does that make sense? I always say, so when I receive information from spirit, a lot of times it comes through so quick. Like there's a whole bunch of information that I receive all at once. And then what happens is it goes through my filter and then I can present it so that it makes sense. And that's really what our intuition does for us. It helps us to make sense of it. So what we're going to do tonight is we're going to allow all of those senses to open up. And the cool thing about it is you guys know how to do this naturally. So before you start trying to do it, just know it's more of an untrying. It's more of an undoing than doing. Does that make sense? Yeah. Because there's nothing worse than somebody trying to make their intuition work, trying to, right, flex that muscle, because it just happens naturally. And it happens the most when we kind of surrender, when we allow, when we get out of the way. Does that make sense?
Mm.
And so I wanted to start off by, we'll just keep letting everybody in as they come in. I wanted to start off by asking you guys this important question. And this is write this in your journey because I want to see what kind of answer comes up for you about this. And so Spirit asked me to tap into the question of how long have you been on your spiritual journey? So just feel into that for a minute. Like, how long have you been on your spiritual path, on your ascension, on your awakening? And try and feel into it. So try not to think about it. Let's like every question that we ask tonight, let's flex your intuition muscle on this. So let's try and just feel into it instead of thinking about it. Just see if if a number comes up for you, or if an experience comes up for you. And then just write down whatever comes through. So how long have you been on your spiritual path, your spiritual journey, your spiritual ascension, your spiritual awakening? There's so many words that we use for it, right? Path, journey, awakening. Trudy says 2 years. Okay. And if you want to put it in the chat for us to see, then that's awesome. Person says 19 years.
Since the pandemic,
Since the pandemic? Are we
2020, that's when I
4 years
really
now?
got
Is that-
into it.
Is that 4 years? I forget how long it's even been. Vonnie says 7 years. And does anyone feel like they're not on their spiritual path, or they're not on their ascension, or they're not on their awakening? Okay. And then let me ask you this question. So, what were you doing prior to the beginning of your spiritual journey? What were you doing that prior to your ascension beginning? And maybe you can just get a sense of how you felt in your life, or where you were, what you were doing, who you were with, what kind of experiences you were having. And Susan's saying 40 years since she started training with a medium in Long Island, New York, where you're from. And so, Susan, 40 years you've been doing it. Do you want to share your age with us so that we know how long before you were saying that you started? Vonnie says oblivious. So it's good for this. And so what we want you guys to see here is I want you to see that aspect or that version of you that you feel was prior to your ascension or your awakening, and the version or aspect of you that is now, that is on your ascension path, on your awakening.
50 years.
50 years, I was saying. Good.
And I'm 75.
75. Good. And so Susan's 71. So there was a few years before that. Good. Okay. So does everybody get a sense of who they were before their awakening and who they are now during their awakening? Is everybody able to get a sense of that? Is there a distinction between the two, or do they feel the same to you? And just feel into that for a minute. Just feel, and does it feel like the same version of you or just slightly different? Bonnie's saying night and day.
Yeah. I feel a change too in myself.
Yeah. So do you notice that, Amy, you notice a big difference between then and now?
Yes. I was born and raised Catholic, but when you ask what I was before the awakening, I just realized that it started when I was a caregiver to an elderly in Cyprus, when I was voted out of their church because I'm not one of them. And yeah, somebody screamed at me right inside the church. I felt bad about it. Of course, I was shamed. I felt casted out, and was shameful and hurtful. Then within that year, meditation was new to me. It happened around that time, so it started there. I think that's the time that my awakening started. That I got drawn more into spiritual aspect. That I started to steer away from religion. So I decided to, okay, I will be more open to other aspects of the spirituality, not religion per se.
Right. Yeah. And I think that, that can be like an opening door for many people, right? Something happens, a tragedy happens, and then, yeah, the moving away from something that feels structured or fear-based, for sure. Yeah.
That's my same story too, as I left the Catholic Church when I was 18 because I was pregnant and I felt shamed and like I didn't belong. But then there was this feeling of something was lost and empty and a void. And so that's when I started seeking not religions, but some form of connection with spirit.
Right. And so let me ask you that. So just when Deb's saying that word, when she's saying seeking, I want you guys just to write that word down for a minute, seeking, and see if that applies to you. See if that kind of expresses or interprets your experience and what you have been doing is seeking. Who resonates with that word? Who can say, yeah, that's
Yeah,
sounds like
I'm
what I've been
resonating.
doing, seeking. I'm a seeker.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, same with me.
Awesome. So I want to let you guys know what Spirit wants us to know about that whole dialogue is they want us to know and understand and remember that there is no beginning and no end. So meaning there was no beginning of your spiritual journey and there's no end of your spiritual journey. Have I confused anybody? Did I make it like, what do you mean? Yeah, I started.
No, because we basically seek all our lives, basically.
Right. I think that's okay because there's always new stuff to learn.
So let me ask you guys this. If you believe and you understand that there's no beginning and there's no end, and we're talking specifically having to do with your spiritual journey, your awakening, your ascension, then what's the purpose of it? What's like the
Evolution.
using your intuition? What's the first thing that comes to your senses? What's the purpose of it? What's the purpose of all the classes, reading the books? What's the purpose of it?
Just
To
to go
evolve.
beyond what we already have learned, that there's always going to be more to learn to come to the realization of, oh, that's what that meant. And that's how those two tie together. And it's just an enlightening all the way.
Okay, so then let me just ask you this though. If I take the word learn, because she's given us the word learn, where do we learn with? What are we learning with?
Oh, well, I like to learn with science also. I like to learn about the origins of civilizations and of different spiritual groups and
Right. Okay. And so
Like
when
a
we talk
more
about that,
open
though,
mind.
what I'm trying to show you guys is when we say learn. So this is the thing about it. When we're learning something, it means we're putting it through our minds, right?
To
When
guide
we
us.
learn something, we're trying to remember it. We're trying to understand it. We're trying to figure it out. Does that make sense? If we say we're going to learn something, it would mean you have to remember it. You have to figure it out. You have to make sense of it, right? That makes sense?
I think the purpose is to guide us.
To guide us? Yeah.
yeah.
And Adina saying, yeah, to grow and expand. Tammy's saying to lift us into higher consciousness. Amy's saying to evolve and raise our frequency. Yes. And so all of that, we can summarize it in the simplest way, which is to explore. The purpose is for us to explore. So I want you to write that word down. I want you to write the word explore down. And I want you to feel into that word, into the word explore, and see what comes up for you with that. When you say the word explore, when you think the word explore, when you feel the word explore, does it feel open-ended to you? Does it feel open and expansive?
Yes.
Or is there something stopping it? Is there something blocking it or feeling stuck with you with it?
No, it's endless.
It's feeling open for you. Good. Is
It's
anybody feeling stuck, or does anybody, when they're saying explore, does anything come up for them that doesn't feel open or expansive? No,
No.
everybody good. Good.
do
And it's
more.
okay if you don't. It's okay if you were feeling into the word explore and it doesn't feel open and expansive to you. That's okay because it will just show you what you have that's kind of blocking it, what energy is blocking that.
Here.
That makes sense. That makes sense, everybody?
Yes. Jody, can I share something because I'm feeling the need to right now, and I'm hoping to just have people's energy expand and help this. My daughter died 2 days ago
Oh, God.
of cancer. And it wasn't sudden. She outlived her termination date by 2 years instead of 2 months. She was supposed to die. She lived loudly and fully for 2 years, but then when the end came, it was very quick and extremely peaceful and absolutely beautiful. So I'm trying to wrap my head around what all that means.
Right. Okay. So everybody listen to the word, Deb, and I'm so sorry for your loss. It's the hardest. I think it's incredibly hard when a parent loses a child. I've, over the years have done readings for many, many parents that have lost their children, and I know how unfair it feels. But I want you guys to listen to her wording around this experience. I want to learn what this feels. I want to figure out what this, right? So this is, I'm glad you said that because it shows us again for this experience, what you're wanting to do is you want to explore it. So
Yes.
meaning there's nothing for you to figure out in it, nothing for you to make sense of, nothing for you to understand with your mind through it,
Right.
but it's an experience for you to explore.
Yes.
That
I want to
makes-
explore the feeling of no, because we've been separated for a few months. I haven't seen her for months because of whatever conflict. But I feel like she's now with me, right? Part of my very essence, like all the time. I'm closer to her now constantly with none of that unimportant earthly dribble drabble bullshit.
Right.
But it's pure love. That's all that there is.
That's amazing.
It's just love.
That's amazing. And so if you are in that space, it's okay just to hold on to that. There's no need to continue to go through the stories in your mind, to go through the dialogue, to go through the right. Once you've reached the sense of peace
Go
around
lay down.
something, there's no need to continually dissect it.
Yes.
Right? That's the mind that comes in and does that. And when we talk about our intuition, using our intuition doesn't even communicate through the mind.
Yes. And you can't dissect it because she has her perspective and her stuff that caused her to react. And I have mine, and there's no way I can know hers. And it doesn't matter at all. It doesn't matter. All that matters is in the end, she looked at me and she said, I love you, Mom. And I looked at her and I said, and I love you, Tracy. In those seconds of interaction are all that matters.
It is. And this is, we have to understand that those moments are what matters in everything. In the most complicated, most intense experiences, like somebody passing that we love, but those moments are just as important in every single aspect of what we do. Right? This is when we process everything through our mind, we downplay the importance of everything. But when we process things through our intuition, we have a heightened sense of the brilliance, the wonder, the expansion in every moment.
Yes, and everything disappeared except that moment. I mean, that the external was just gone.
Right.
It's
Right.
just that second in time.
Yes. And that's what we want to do. So in these classes, when we're using our intuition to guide us and we're exploring with our intuition, that's what we want to do is we want to be taking every moment as that comes. So every moment, we don't need to be projecting. We don't need to be going back. And the thing that Spirit said to us was that there's no beginning and no ending. So when we say to you, there's no beginning and no ending, there should be, and let me know, but there should be a sense of relief that comes up for you.
Oh God, yes. It's no more of this bullshit of misunderstandings and egos and differences because she's a Scorpio and I'm a Pisces. Nothing matters except
Right.
we loved and we chose to come here together. And
Yes.
that's and there's a reason for that, and I don't know what it is, and it doesn't matter what it is.
Right. And so if we can apply the remembering, the understanding that every moment is an opportunity for us to explore, to expand in, right? So every moment, meaning that we don't have to be working to finish something. We're not working towards something. We're not working to complete anything. We are just in a continuous experience of exploring. When we bring that memory back to us, that knowing, because that's how our soul navigates. Our soul navigates through every single experience being an exploration. It doesn't ever say this is bad and this is good. It just explores.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So when we do that, it takes the pressure off of us. So when we take the pressure off of us, it allows our interpretation of every experience we're having to expand and shift and change. And that's when we talk about the awakening or the ascension happening. That's what's happening. Does that make sense, everybody?
Mhm.
Okay, so let's go in. We're going to, so what we do in these classes is we go through some books and we kind of take chunks that we're guided to, and then we explore what that means. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read something from this book. What I want you to do is I want you to practice on receiving the information through your intuition, through your higher self, through your soul. And I want you just to write things down that come through, that come up. Have you guys, who's heard of automatic writing before?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a great way to connect with your guides, to connect with source, to be able to channel information, right? Just allowing the information to come in and flow. And notice that it doesn't have to come through the mind. It's just going to come through the intuition filter, right? You're going to pick it up through your senses, and then you're going to put it through your intuition filter. Your intuition filter is going to give you the guidance and the clarity of, okay, this is something I need to know right now. This is something that I need to bring into my exploration. This is an awareness that I need to have on my journey, on my path. Make sense?
Mhm.
Okay, so we're going to go into this book. And so this is When Things Fall Apart, and that's by Pema Chodron, and it's Heart Advice for Difficult Times. Can you guys see that okay? I know it looks words on there, but so we're going to dive into this book right now. And you guys are going to get ready to write your stuff down and really allow it to flow. Like, allow this to be. And here's another thing too. You know, that's I had, sometimes they ask and sometimes they don't. But when I do my readings for clients, I think some of you guys have had, but when I do my readings for clients, my video is off. So the client can have their video on, but my video is off. And the reason for that is because when I channel, I do a lot of moving. My body does a lot of moving, and it's distracting for the client. So I want them to hear the message, and I don't want them to see Jody like flying around the room because she's channeling information. And the reason I do that is because my guides, when they come through, they bring through a lot of energy. There's a lot of energy to process. So when you're doing your automatic writing, if you feel the need to move or to sway or to rock, pay attention to that and allow that kind of flow to come in. Remember, everything holding a frequency, everything being vibration. If we're very stuck and very, in a statue position and not moving, and our neck is tight and our shoulders are up to our ears, it really makes things hard to flow, right? Things will not flow through you. This is why, if you suffer from chronic pain, if anybody ever has pain in their body, what's happening is energy is coming up to that part of your body and getting stuck. And then there's a backup of energy that causes the pain. So what we want to do is we want to encourage the energy to flow through us. So really allow yourself, and if you want to shut your camera off because you feel silly swaying back and forth, then go ahead and do that. But really allow the energy to flow, and allow maybe your pen on the paper just starts scribbling. Maybe there's no words that are coming out. Maybe it just becomes like a doodle, or becomes and who used to doodle when they were in school? Did anybody, were you a doodler sitting in class listening to your teacher and drawing whatever, stars, flowers, whatever, right? We just intuitively know when we're younger how to let energy flow through us. We forget it as we get older because we get baggage. So we're going to give ourselves permission to let the baggage go and just let things flow. Okay, so we're going to get into this book. And so this chapter is actually from chapter 1. So, and this is in case anybody wants to pick up the book and know where we were. I won't be reading every single word as we go through, but I'm just going to read the parts that I'm called to read for us. So this chapter is called The Intimacy with Fear. And so fear is a natural reaction to moving closer to the truth. Who feels like they have fear in their frequency? They have fear in their experience. Who feels like they're working on fear? Anybody? And here's an interesting thing, because sometimes we can confuse the frequency of fear with being weak and being afraid and that kind of energy. But fear can show up as anger, frustration, hostility, rage. That's all fear.
Question.
Yes.
Is confusion also considered fear?
So
Can it be categorized?
yeah, it would depend on how you express it. So confusion is not a black and white frequency, because confusion can hold sadness or grief or loneliness in there, but it can also hold anger and fear in there as well.
Well, this is really out of the topic, but related. When I do my meditation, sometimes I will get messages. I just realized that I am a clairaudient. I would hear messages that what is about to come, but then sometimes it doesn't happen as I was told. So it's confusing. Sometimes I ask, "Who are you? Why I'm getting different messages?"
Mhm.
Like let's say once I was told, let's say it's going to rain, but then it doesn't.
Right?
I forgot what the messages that was told that did not happen. I'm just giving you an example.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
it's confusing because there are times that I was given messages that it happened for
Right.
real, but
Right.
then others did not. So I was like, why? So that's why I'm confused. But that doesn't necessarily that I am afraid. There's no fear. It's just confusion because I don't know why. I feel like I am being confused for whatever reason, and I am not sure if I am connecting to the same spirit.
Right. Yeah, and so I mean it's kind of a big answer because it's a big question, but whenever you are somebody who is opening up your clairs to receive, to channel, to be a psychic, to be a medium, the there's always an aspect of it that a lot of people miss, and that's the beginning, the very beginning of it. And that's why when I would teach my classes, my students, we would start with the foundations because you cannot be a channel, a medium, or a psychic unless you understand what your frequency is like, what your personal vibration is like,
Mm,
meaning your parts, like your ego, your pain body, your soul. So understanding those very, very well. So that when you
mm,
are receiving information, then you can distinguish between this is coming from me or this is coming from an outside source. Then when
mm,
we say it's coming from an outside source, okay, so what's that outside source? Right? So this is again, so if you are opening or they're opening you up to be a channel, there is choice in that. So you can allow who brings information through to you, right? You get to choose who you're receiving information from, right? You're not just an open door allowing every spirit, every entity, every being to talk through you,
mm,
right? Because there are energies, there are spirit energies that are not of light.
mm,
Not meaning that they're demons and they're going to attack you, but they do play around with the host sometimes,
mm,
right? So this is why we have to be very, very aware of who we are connecting to, who we are allowing to come through and give us messages, right? Because otherwise it's just all randomness, right? Like if you're somebody, and this happens to empaths a lot. I know we're going off topic here a bit, but empaths who are highly sensitive, right? They pick up everybody's energy, everybody's stuff. So imagine if you were standing on the street and you could just hear everybody's thoughts. It would be really hard for you to distinguish what's the truth, what's not the truth, where's it coming from, right? So that it becomes a skill in order to be able to, first of all, make sure you're not open all of the time, just receiving randomness. This is another thing that's really, really important for medium psychics to understand. Everything that you give has to serve a purpose.
I have a question, if I might. It's
Yes.
not going to be long. I hear things all the time, and for the longest time, I'm wondering why is this happening to me? And now I looked into all this stuff for years now, and I realize that, but I don't know. I don't know what to do with it, how to develop it. I would never try to become a medium because it's like the Amy said, it's very confusing. I'm there now, but I'll be going about my day at work, at home, whatever, and I'll think of all these people that have passed away that were not very meaningful in my life. But
Mhm.
all of a sudden, I'll think about them and I'll hear them speak to me. And these were just like maybe acquaintances or friends of friends, and oh yeah, that person died and I'm thinking of them now. Like, what is that?
Yeah, you're just open energetically. So you're definitely being able to connect with that. But then again, I would say, what's the purpose of that?
That's it. There's no purpose to it. That's why
Well, there
I'm
can become a purpose, though. That's the thing. I mean, I believe that, being a psychic or being a medium is a calling. I believe that it's a calling. So if your spirit team wants you to be serving a purpose using that information, they will guide you in the right direction. Right? Often there can be resistance, sometimes it can be the ego that comes in and shuts it down and says to you, "Oh no, we're just imagining this. This is just nonsense." But sometimes, your higher self can come in and say, "Well, we need some more guidance on this. I need a mentor. I need somebody to show me what I'm doing." Right? It's definitely, if you're somebody who has tried to navigate this on your own, you're, experiencing your clairs on your own, it usually won't end very well. Right? It's something that you need guidance in unless, and here's the big caveat of it, unless you have a very, very strong spiritual foundation in place. So meaning you've been doing all the work, you've been doing all the exploring, right? You understand again, ego, pain body, your soul energy. You understand all the aspects of your human avatar. You understand all of that. You understand the light, you understand the dark, because it's all of that in being able to do that work. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a big subject. Obviously, maybe I need to start doing my mediumship psychic classes again because there's
I think so, because I'd be interested.
yeah,
Mhm.
you know what? I
Yep.
get emails all the time about saying, when will you do your next class? And I've been, take it step by step on what we're doing. But I feel like these classes are so important because, trust me, they give you the skill set to navigate, to be able to understand and make sense of the other stuff. Right? This is when you become a psychic or a medium, or you're doing that work, or you're trying to make sense of the messages you're receiving, you have to be able to know what you're interpreting. You need to understand the source of the information. That makes sense?
Yeah, yeah.
So many students over the years that have just tried to dabble with this on their own and had come to some pretty, scary conclusions that, they were being attacked by entities, or there was a dark, energy that came through that pretend to be an angel. And so that stuff can happen. Right?
Yeah.
It's not make
No.
believe, but it can happen because energy is energy and it's expressing itself in different ways. And if you don't come in with a solid foundation, with a focus and an intention of what you will allow and what you won't, then it literally just leaves your back door open for anything to come in.
I believe it.
Right? That's
Yeah.
why these classes are important, because the more you develop your intuition, the more you develop that exploration through your senses, there's a few things that happen. One, your frequency rises, right? As soon as we get out of the mind and we get into our hearts, our frequency rises. The higher our frequency, the more we are out of any kind of dark energy. This is the thing that you have to remember, right? We are in a world that is governed by like attracts like. So if you keep your frequency high and clear and clean, those are the frequencies that will be around you. If we drop in frequency, that does make us vulnerable and opens us up to darker energies. Make sense? And remember, darker energies are attracted to fear, which is taking me back to the book. And the vibration of fear, the frequency of fear. That's what we talk about. When we talk about dark energy, that's what the fuel is for it. That's fear. I know people think, oh, we talk about dark energy, it
Oh.
must be like an entity or a demon, or, the things you see in the movies. But no, a dark energy can be fear, somebody making you fearful. Right? Somebody making you afraid to, and when I say somebody, something yourself making you afraid to do things. That can be a dark energy. Okay. So when we go into, we're going to go back into intimacy with fear. So it's a good topic to be on, right? And Amy, I hope we answered your question, because that was the big turnaround. But I would say this, because they're just giving me this confusion that is not worked on or explored can definitely develop into fear.
Confusion that is not explored can be
Right.
developed.
Is not explored can develop into fear.
Thank you.
Yes. Okay. So I'm going to start. This is intimacy with fear. Embarking on the spiritual journey is like getting into a very small boat and setting out on the ocean to search for unknown lands. With wholehearted practice comes inspiration. When you guys hear the word inspiration, whenever I read the word inspiration, I always know that it means in spirit. So when we talk about being inspired, this is when we are connected, when we say in spirit, inspiration. But sooner or later, we will also encounter fear. For all we know, when we get to the horizon, we are going to drop off the edge of the world. Like all explorers, we are drawn to discover what's waiting out there without knowing yet if we have the courage to face it. And so they're just showing me this right now. When we talk about being on our spiritual journey or spiritual path, if we take that piece of information of remembering there's no beginning and no end to it, it also then allows us to say, okay, so there's nothing for me to be afraid of because it's not going to end. I'm not going to hit a conclusion of this. It's not going to be taken away from me. I'm not going to lose anything. Does that make sense? If we become interested in Buddhism and decide to find out what it has to offer, we'll soon discover that there are different slants on how we can proceed. With insight meditation, we begin practicing mindfulness, being fully present with all of our activities and thoughts. With Zen practice, we hear teachings on emptiness and are challenged to connect with the open, unbounded clarity of the mind. Other teachings introduce us to the notion of working with the energy of all situations, seeing whatever arises as an inseparable from the awakened state. And I think that's where we kind of touched in about that when we talk about that exploration, right? When we talk about exploration, we do have the remembering that we are inseparable from the awakened state. Because when we talk about leaving the physical body and we're not in the physical body anymore, we're just pure consciousness. So when we think about consciousness just being open-ended energy, and we get into these human vehicles, they're kind of like our boats or our vehicle. That's why Spirit always calls it a vehicle. But we get into the vehicle to explore the consciousness. Does that make sense?
Mm.
And because we're exploring the consciousness with that understanding that we're inseparable from it. So if we allow ourselves to do that and understand that when we are exploring the consciousness, that we are not different from the consciousness, that it is not it and us, it also takes the pressure off, right? Because there's no, I have to live up to this expectation. I have to, on my spiritual path or spiritual journey, I have to look like this. I have to sound like this. I have to say these words. Because when we're exploring it, it's not asking us to do that, right? When we are in exploration mode, it's not asking us for that. Does that make sense? So any of these approaches might hook us and fuel our enthusiasm to explore further. But if we want to go beneath the surface and practice without hesitation, it is inevitable that at some point we will experience fear. And so they're just giving me the word right now, accountability. I want you guys just to write that word down, accountability. And if we feel into that word, into the word accountability, what comes through for you around that?
Karma.
Karma? Yeah.
You have to be accountable whether what you did good or you did bad.
And so if we talk about the idea of karma being like that, being black or white, good or bad, do we get a sense of karma being something that is a good experience or a bad experience?
From what I understood, karma is the negative, dharma is the positive. So if you did something good, then good will come back to you. But if you did something bad, so you'll have to be accountable for what you have done.
Okay. And so if we talk about the word accountability or being accountable, does it feel like it is an energy that is flowing, or does it feel like it's an energy that is stuck or structured?
Structure.
Stuck and structured. Actually, there's a negative energy hint to it.
Yeah, it feels harder, right? It doesn't feel soft. and
Mhm.
flowing, it feels harder, right? And so if we feel into karma, the word karma, the meaning of karma, does that feel hard to you or does it feel soft and flowing to you?
Hard.
Feels hard to you. Anybody else feel different? And if it feels hard to you, I want you just to feel into where you're getting that feeling the most. Where is that information processing for you? If karma feels hard to you, where's that feeling?
It's
Where's it
coming over
being
my head.
processed?
I feel like it's
In your
all in
head.
the head.
And so the reason that you're feeling that in your head is because everything about karma is stuff that you've been reading about, right?
Mm.
Stuff that you've been told about with karma. And in fact, karma is just another way of exploring things. There's no good or bad in karma. It's an exploration. And when we talk about dharma, dharma is the teachings. We talk about dharma being a teaching, but karma is the exploration.
Hang
So
on. So
meaning,
sorry, Jody. So you said karma is exploration?
right, the karma is the exploration and the
Oh.
dharma is the teaching. So it's not that dharma is good and karma is bad or vice versa. You see, they're just filters. And so there's no soul on this planet who hasn't accumulated any dark karma or heavy karma experience. There's no soul that hasn't. We've incarnated so many times at the age that this planet is. We've incarnated so many times that all of us have been the murderer, the kidnapper, the slave, the master. We've been it all,
Mm-hmm.
right? And because we've been it all, there's no possible way to say this is black and this is white, right? Everything has become merged into one. It's only when we interpret it through the human lens that we try to differentiate between things, right? But when we step into it through our soul lens, through our higher self lens, through our intuition, we can say, when I hear the word karma, to me, it feels very open. Anything is possible in karma. That means the good can play out, the bad can play out, the dark, the light, everything can play out in the karma. It's just an accumulation of energy.
I think karma can be challenging.
Well, everything can be challenging if you're
I'm
trying
not-
to do it through the mind.
I'm not saying it's bad, but it doesn't, it just feels like it's not ease and flow, karma. It's being accountable, which sometimes can be uncomfortable.
Absolutely. So it's a huge misconception that, being spiritually awake or being on your spiritual path is just smooth and ease.
Right.
So in
Right?
other
Because
words,
remember, when we talk about the importance of it is exploration, we're just here to explore. So that means when we get into our human vehicle or into our human boat, if we can let go of the expectation of, I only want good things to happen, I only want things to go easy, I only want it to be, if we can let go of that, then the experience changes. Because those accountabilities that we create for the exploration makes everything impossible to flow. It takes away the ease. It makes everything harder and structured. Does that make sense? Okay.
can you repeat that, Jody? You said let go of expectation to what?
So let go of expectations for everything. So let go of expectations for the beginning, let go of expectations for the end of it.
I missed the end part of what you said about letting go of expectation.
You'll have to watch the replay of it.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you.
Yes. But I mean, when we talk about letting go of expectation just in everything, right? That's we're letting go of the expectations that we have for ourselves. So meaning And they're just saying to me right now, show up. We just show up. So you just show up in the moment without any expectation or without any reference to accountability, because when we use the word accountability, it puts us into a box. And I know our mind is trained to think, well, accountability means that we have to be accountable for our actions. Right? But it also makes things have to be structured and fit into a box. And this is where I'm not encouraging anybody to go and do anything that you know is bad or negative or hurtful, or you're not saying going to go murder somebody, but you do have those experiences and you have had those experiences. That makes sense? Okay. So when we say, okay, so without hesitation, we will at some point we will experience fear. Fear is a universal experience. And especially on this planet. This is, something that, another perk of my work that I do is because I get to, feel the energy of other beings from other dimensions, we are the most dense of beings on this planet. We are energetically the most dense because there's the most fear concentrated on this planet. And so even the smallest insect feels it. So even the smallest insect on this planet feels the vibration of fear. And it's not a terrible thing that we feel fear when faced with the unknown. It is part of being alive, something we all share. We react against the possibility of loneliness, of death, of not having anything to hold on to. Fear is a natural reaction to moving closer to the truth. And so, who would feel like, and who would say that this applies to them, that many of the life lessons that you've been going through, many of the life lessons that you've been experiencing, have a theme of fear in them? Or as you further explore it and further go into it, it becomes more fearful.
At some point.
Okay.
I think we all experience that. We're all human in the first place.
Yeah. I feel like the deeper we go, so the more vulnerable we become, the more open we become, the more expansive our experience becomes. And because of that, it can easily fill with fear. What she's talking to us about in the book, though, is that the fear brings us closer to the truth. So then that brings me back to the wanting to understand the idea of me giving fear this big power. Just like I say karma. So karma is if I put karma in and say, well, karma is what happens to you when you're bad, it's a punishment. I'm putting a certain agenda around that, right? And do you think that we do the same thing with fear? Do you think that we do that with fear? So meaning I don't want to feel fear. I want to avoid fear at all costs.
Well, I think of them more as a balance. Karma is more of a balance. If you do things that are like more, let's say more negative, or something that you would rather you hadn't done, you balance it out on the other hand by trying to be more mindful and more kind and kind of erase the negativity of that previous experience in your mind.
Yeah. And I think though, if we can look at fear as being just a frequency. So that's the thing I love about the AO scanner stuff is there's like thousands and thousands of frequencies in there. And there's no like score sheet of, well, these are the better frequencies, these are the worst frequencies. It's just a frequency. And so when we do that, when we allow that knowing, that remembering to come in of fear is just a frequency, right? It changes things, don't you think? Don't you think if there's something that you're fearful about, or there's fear around a situation or a life lesson, if you change your relationship with the fear frequency, do you think that it will change the way you have the experience?
Yes, 100%. I experienced that a lot lately.
Yes. And so Susan's just saying, fearful of others' projections onto me in certain situations, that it is to shut down my abilities, talents. I see that now from past experiences. Okay. So again, when we go back to who's resonating with that, or who is like, I'm not getting that. Fear is a natural reaction to moving closer to the truth.
I get it 100%, but it doesn't apply to me. It applies to a situation with one of my kids. So the
Okay.
more fearful one of my grown adult son gets, because it's true. Whatever whatever situation he's in that I'm obviously not going to bother everyone with, the more, because he knows what I'm saying that might occur as a result of his actions is true. So he's becoming more fearful.
Right. Yes. Because the closer you get to it, the bigger it feels, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Okay. So she says in here, if we commit ourselves to staying right where we are, then our experience becomes very vivid. Things become very clear when there is nowhere to escape. And that brings us back into the, if there's no beginning and no end, where are we trying to run away to?
Yeah.
Where are we trying to escape to? Do we do that? Well, if I could just get here, then that will change. Right? Or if I could just finish that, that will change.
Travel to the four corners of the earth and it just keeps following me. And here I am in this little apartment and here it is still. So
Right. I mean, we talked about at the beginning of seekers, right? We're all seekers. How many seekers, travel to this country or that country or this island or that island in the hopes that they leave fear where they found it.
meditated away.
Right?
Doesn't
No, there's no spiritual bypassing on that.
no.
Okay. So when we begin our exploration, we have all kinds of ideals and expectations, right? Again, when we talk about the very beginning, when I asked you guys who the version of you was prior to your awakening or your soul's journey, and then who the version of you now, that's all about our expectations, right? When you first started your soul's journey, your ascension, your awakening, you had a very specific identity that you felt you needed to become. Does that make sense?
Yes, like one of those people sitting on the stage in flowing robes. That's what I wanted to be.
Right? I think that applies to everybody. There's that, and again, they're saying that accountability as well. Like, so the accountability and the expectations come together. When we bring those two words together, accountability and expectations, do they feel hard to us or do they feel soft and flowing?
Soft and flowing is what the hope is.
But does accountability and expectation, just those two words, feel into it? Don't think into it. Just,
Okay.
and close your eyes for a minute if that helps you. Shut your human stuff off. Accountability, expectation.
It's
No,
hard.
that's
Hard.
not wonderful.
I want you just to write those words down in your book. Accountability, expectation. And I want you just to write beside it what sense you get. Is it hard? Is it structured? Or is it soft? Is it flowing?
These are both hard for me.
Both hard.
Structured.
Hard.
So she says, we are looking for answers that will satisfy a hunger we've felt for a very long time. But the last thing we want is a further introduction to the boogeyman. So the last thing that we want to do is encounter more fear, right? The last thing, isn't that, don't you, when you come through something that's been really challenging, really hard, and there was a lot of fear through it, isn't it something then you say, I want to avoid that at all costs? Like next time
Right.
whatever I have to do to avoid that, to stop that, I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Isn't that's usually how we do things, right?
Right.
Makes a lot of sense.
And so it's very, very interesting how that exploration. So there's certain things that we hear, because they're giving me this as an example. So let's explore this for a minute. Who has had a child? Who has given birth? Who we have all women here. We have no men in our class right now. And who had a really difficult time giving birth, like really experienced the pain, really experienced the trauma, really had a lot of fear building up to it, had fear during it. Who had that
Me.
experience?
Me.
I don't think I've met any woman that was like, oh, giving birth was just a breeze and I loved it and it felt amazing and it was like getting a massage at the spa. I don't think anybody has done that. I have 3 babies and I can remember every time when it was happening for saying that I don't ever want to do this again. This is the
No.
worst thing I've ever experienced my entire life. I never ever want to do this ever again.
I remember the second one about a month before my due date thinking, what the fuck have you done?
Why did I do this again? Yes,
Yeah,
exactly. But so that part of us, and yet ironically, how many of us go on to continue to have more than one?
I know.
How many of us forget about all of that fear and all of the trauma and all of the drama and everything, and then we go and we do it again,
Yes, we just want that baby.
right? Because we do it for the exploration. We do it for the experience. We know that experience, even though it was horrific and painful and dangerous and scary, we know that we grow so much through that, right? There's so much that happens through that exploration. Vonnie's saying it was the quickest 10 minutes of her life. Nice.
Oh God, it's in later 52 hours.
Yes.
God, that was my first one.
Wow. Yeah, that's lots. And Kirsten, don't worry. I know you're in there. I don't know why it's coming up but that's okay. Don't worry. I know you're there. Yes. Okay. So when we talk about that, so we know when we're going into this exploration, when we're going in and we're doing this exploring, the purpose of it is not to come to a conclusion, not to finish something, not for something to be over, right? But a continuation of it. And so what we're talking about is getting to know fear. In every experience that we have in this human avatar, there's going to be some amount of fear in it, whether it expresses itself through confusion, whether it expresses itself through anger, whether it expresses itself through sadness. There's going to be some aspect of fear. So becoming familiar with fear, looking it right in the eye, not as a way to solve problems. So remember, this is where we're not going into fear to be able to say, I need to figure you out. I need to make sense of you, fear. But as a complete undoing of old ways of seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, and thinking. how many times have you experienced the frequency of fear, the vibration of fear, and it has left you feeling confused or has left you feeling unsure or left you feeling weak or doubting?
All of the
Yeah.
above. It's all of the above.
Right. And what happens when we get into that state of being, that state of exploring? Is it not the same as an undoing? Is it
Undoing
an
the what?
undoing? Is it an undoing of the old ways that we would be doing things? And does it make us then change the way that we are exploring? So when we bring the fear in, is it giving us the opportunity to change the ways that we are exploring? So literally helping us to change the way we see, the way we hear, the way we smell, the way we taste, the way we think.
Well, it's not helping to bring the fear into it. I don't
But is the
think.
fear, but if we look at the fear as not being our enemy, not being something that we need to, throw away or run away from, then do we say to the fear, okay, you are now giving me the
Oh,
opportunity to
okay.
explore all of this in a different way?
Yeah, I see your point there. Yeah, I see.
Right? And so she says, the truth is that when we really begin to do this, we're going to be continually humbled. There's not going to be much room for the arrogance that holding on to ideals can bring. The arrogance that inevitably does arise is going to be continually shot down by our own courage to step forward a little further. And that's when she talks about fear again is a natural reaction to moving closer to the truth. So we're getting really close to the end of time with this. And so what I want us to leave tonight with is being willing to explore our experiences with fear. And then having the lens, though, of our intuition guide us through it. So instead of having the fear is bad and it's wrong and I need to get rid of it, I need to stop it, instead of that, just saying it's just a different lens that is going to make this experience different.
Do you have any books you could suggest for me, Jody, that can help me?
That's what we're going to be doing every week, Deb, is we're going to be exploring the book. So I'll be recommending all of the books.
But I mean, for me in particular, because it's not real yet. It's just not real.
Well, everything is always real. Again, take the expectations off of where you are right now. When we talk about something is not real, there's an expectation that it needs to look and be a certain way. It doesn't have to be. It doesn't have, when people are experiencing something as intense as grief, it doesn't have to look a certain way. It doesn't have to look the way it does in a book. Your grief is very unique to you. However you choose to explore this is entirely up to you. Remember, then again, we talk about this. There's no right or wrong in this. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So the biggest thing we want to take when we're doing these classes is we want to have the awareness of how much we are going into our mind for the answers, of how much we are feeling the need to figure things out and make sense of it.
Mhm.
So for this next, and if you feel called to join us in the next class, then it's all up in the thing. You can go and sign up and register for that. But from now until then, what I would invite you to do is I would invite you to explore this next week with the theme of there is no beginning and there is no end. So meaning I don't have to be at this point. I don't have to be at point A right now or point B or point 1 or point 10. I'm just where I am right now. And where I am right now is not the end and it's not the beginning, but it's just right now. Right? If we just right now in this moment, just allow yourself to express and experience and explore whatever it is that's right now for you, it literally just takes all the pressure off. Make sense? They're leaving me with that one word. So I want you guys, that accountability word. I want you guys to make sure you write that down and just feel into that. You can meditate on it. You can call in your guides and ask. And I feel like it's not going to be what you think it is. Because when I feel into the word accountability, I feel like there's a lot of deep programming in that. There's a lot of this is how things have to be. This is what it, if it's good, this is what it looks like. And if it's bad, this is what it looks like. So just feel into that a little bit of how maybe that is the accountability for you is something that you're really have been restrictive on yourself about. Maybe it's something that you have been holding yourself up to a certain level that is not even a realistic thing to do. Maybe
Punishment came
something
to
that it
mind.
hasn't been helpful for you.
Mm.
Just feel into it a little bit. This is, when we talk about our intuition, this is why there's not, not a lot of great psychics and mediums out there, because it's not an easy gift to attune to, because literally sometimes they will give us a word, right? They give us a word and then we have to expand on it. We have to go into it and explore it.
Jody, that's good that you mentioned that. When I hear things, they only say like a phrase. I rarely get a sentence. And when I follow up with a question, I don't get answers back. And
Right.
why is that so? Why?
Well, because it's the way that they communicate. Again, it depends on who's communicating with you and their style of communication. But remember, they, here in this human avatar, we communicate with language, right? We use the spoken, the words. That's how we communicate. But when we talk about communicating with spirit, they don't use that kind of language. When you're bringing through a word or a phrase, that's going through your filter. You're interpreting it.
Mm.
That's why sometimes things can get lost in communication, right? Sometimes spirit, like they can give me information. I can give it to somebody and the person will say, well, no, I don't understand. That doesn't make any sense. And then I know they haven't made a mistake. It's me. I've lost it in translation. So I go back in and say, you have to give that to me in a different way because I'm not translating it properly.
Oh.
Makes sense.
Right?
So what you're saying is when I ask for clarity of the information I just received and I don't get a reply, does it mean to say that it's my human translation? My ability to understand that, or the vocabulary I should say, is kind of limited to what I am being given?
It can be. It can literally be like, so when we're channeling information, we become an interpreter. You're an interpreter. And so depending on where your skill set is, where your level of skill is, maybe you only interpret 2 languages. But it
Mm.
happens be that the information that's coming through is in a third language that you don't understand.
So there's so much come into play in
Oh, absolutely.
understanding.
Absolutely. There's also too, though, remember when we receive information, and this applies to everything, not just in psychic and mediumship, but everything has to serve a purpose. Everything serves a purpose. Spirit does not give us information that is none of our business. So remind yourself of that as well, right? If we ask for clarity on something or we ask for information on something and we don't get the answer, they don't give it to us, 99% of the time it's because it's none of our business,
Mm.
right? They also don't give us answers for if it's something that's pertaining to a life lesson, if it's something that we're supposed to be exploring and learning on our own, they don't give us the answers for that.
Oh. So we have
They
to
give us
figure it out on
guidance,
our
give
own.
us support, they show us the signpost and say, "Here, there's the sign," but they don't give you, "Here's the answers to the quiz." They don't do that. It defeats the purpose. Again, when you go back to everything serving a purpose, why would they do that if we've come here to explore it? If you came here as a soul for exploration, to grow, to experience everything, and spirit just went to go, here's the book with all the answers,
That's what I
you
want.
would leave. You would leave. You'd be out of here because you'd be like, "Oh, well, this was quick. I finished the book," right?
Mm. Okay, it makes sense.
Yes, it's about exploration. Okay, so I want to thank you guys for coming and joining us tonight and having this fun. So we're going to do this for the next 4 weeks. We're going to dive into a different book. Maybe we'll go into a couple of books again because some of them, there's so much insight to be had there. But as the theme for this week, just do yourself a favor and just remind yourself that you have intuition. It's there naturally for you. It's not something that you have to try to do. It's more of an undoing and it's more of an untrying. Does that make sense? Okay. And if you guys have any questions about anything, just shoot me an email and hopefully I'll see you again next week. And it's the same time every week. It's 6 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. We do it for about 90 minutes and every class is different. Like I said, you never know what comes up. If there's something specific that comes through for you, then we definitely share that. Yeah. And it's
Can
fun
I
because we're exploring. That's what we're here to do, is we're here to explore.
Can I ask you a technical question? It might not be appropriate. Is there a way to make the screen clearer, or is that because I have a cheap whatever you call this, laptop pad, whatever, notepad? Because that one woman in